On today's episode, we'll be making puffs! I'm a huge pastry kind of girl. When I was young, I loved eating curry puffs, but only for the pastry. I would literally nibble around the crust, scoop out the filling, pass it to my brother, and devour the rest of it. So today, I'll be sharing with you my very easy recipe for a baked curry puff / empanada using pumpkin and a few other flavor bombs. So the main filling for these puffs are pumpkin. And I'm first going to chop this up, we're gonna bake it in the oven, and then we can prepare the rest of it. Now, my tip for you guys when working with fresh pumpkin is to not throw away the seeds because these are gems. Not to make pumpkin seeds, but what I do is I actually scoop out the flesh and I keep it in a jar and I freeze it until I've got enough and I make stock with it. And it's the best stock I've ever made and it's incredibly simple. So it's definitely something you may want to try at home and it saves your food waste too. So I've got all my seeds, into the jar it goes, and you can freeze this until you're ready to make your soup stock. And now we chop up the pumpkin into even-sized cubes. Okay, I'm chopping up the last bits of my pumpkin. Okay, so this goes into the baking tray, and we're cutting it into evenly sized cubes so that they cook at the same time. So that's there. And now we're just gonna season it with some olive oil, salt, pepper, and some thyme. Just a drizzle of that will do. And now season it with some salt and pepper. I'm now gonna go in with some fresh thyme because I think they go really, really well with pumpkin and feta and the spice that's gonna go into this dish. But if you don't have thyme at home, you can use any other fresh herbs lying around or even dried thyme if you like. And now we want to mix it all up to make sure that it's nicely coated in all that oil. So you want to make sure that all your pumpkin cubes are nicely spaced out so they cook well, and we're going to pop it into the oven for 15 minutes. So while your pumpkin's in the oven, we're going to prepare the rest of the filling, and you don't need much cooking aside from frying up some onions. So I'm just going to cut up an onion and slice it thinly. And we're gonna cook it over low to medium heat until it gets nice and soft. So our onions are looking perfect. I'm just gonna dish them out right now and we're gonna set it aside to cool while we prepare our dough. So I'm gonna leave the onions here to cool and the pumpkin is also done, so I'll remove that from the oven and I will set that aside to cool as well. And now for the most important part of the recipe, the dough. We'll be working with 4 very simple pantry staples. That's flour, olive oil, salt, and cold water. Now I'm using olive oil instead of butter because this makes it easier to work with. You won't be competing with your butter melting. And also by using olive oil, the pastry ends up really nice and crusty at the edges and you won't end up with greasy fingers. So all of that goes into my bowl. I'm gonna mix it up and then it's gonna chill out in the fridge for 10 minutes before we roll it out. Alrighty, it's time to put our fillings together. I've got the pumpkin right here. Just gonna dump that in. Okay, all that goes in. Smells lovely. And we're gonna add in our onions as well. That goes in. And then we've got feta. I'm using feta because I think it goes amazingly well with pumpkin, but you can use whatever cheese you like, or you can even omit it if you want. I'm just going to cut it into small cubes. In the feta goes. And then I'm gonna go in with the juice of half a lime. This is gonna give it some nice acidity. If you've got lemon, that's fine as well. Okay, that's done. And now I'm gonna cut in 1 chili padi. If you want it spicier, you can go for that. Go for 2, go for 3. So I'm gonna mince the chili padi up. This way, no one person is gonna get a huge slice of it in their mouth. So we're just gonna get it in little bits and pieces. Okay, and in that goes. I don't wanna use my finger to touch the chili. So in that goes, and we're gonna mix it all about. Wait, I'm going to add some pepper though. Now the thing about this recipe is that depending on how sweet your pumpkin is, you may have to add some brown sugar if you want it sweet. So do remember to try your pumpkin and adjust the seasoning as you go along. Now I'm just gonna mix this up. All right, that's looking good. Now I'm not gonna mush it up too much because I want it to have a bit of bite. If you want it to be softer, if you're serving it to kids, you can definitely mash this whole thing up. So I'm going to go in for a taste. Okay. This pumpkin is not very sweet. So there's now that saltiness, the thyme is really nice in there. The feta gives that nice sharp saltiness. The acidity from the juice, but I think I need something a bit sharper and sweeter. So I'm gonna go in with some cream of balsamic. You can use balsamic vinegar and some sugar if you want, but honestly, play around with it and go with whatever you like. So I'm just gonna drizzle a little bit of this. Smells really, really good with the balsamic in there. Okay. Can you hear that? ASMR. Okay. All right, it's now time to assemble our pumpkin puffs. I've got my filling, I've got the dough, and let's begin. I just pluck out a good amount and I roll it out. And then I cut a circle out of it. So I've got a pastry cutter here, but you can use a jar, a mug, whatever you have lying around, that works. Even if you don't have a rolling pin, use a wine bottle, just get creative with it. So I'm just going to roll it out really roughly, big enough for me to cut out a pastry circle. Bam. So I've got a perfect circle and I'm just going to roll it out to flatten it out slightly so it's not too thick. Alrighty, there you go. And then I'm gonna put in some filling. You don't want too much filling because you won't be able to close the pastry. Okay, make sure you get a bit of onion, a bit of pumpkin, the chili, the feta. Okay, just a little bit more. Alrighty. And I'm going to, okay, got too much. Yeah, sure, let me, okay. Now I'm gonna seal it up. So you just want to press the edges like so. And I'm gonna use my fork to crimp it down. This gives a nice pattern as well. And make sure that it sticks together. Pretty. All right. So I'm just gonna leave it there and repeat till you finish your dough. And I love working with pumpkin because it's such a versatile ingredient and is really nutritious as well. High in fiber, high in vitamin A, good for your eyes, high in vitamin C, and riboflavin, otherwise known as vitamin B2. And that basically helps you convert all the food that you eat into energy for your body. So I'm down to my last puff. So this recipe, if you're making the puffs at this size, will yield about 8 of them. And they're super easy to make. You can also make ahead. You can freeze it at this point, or you can bake it completely and freeze it then as well. And just reheat them in an oven and you're good to go. And there you go. I'm just gonna brush it off with some egg wash. And this just helps it give a nice glaze so that we can bake it to a nice golden brown. And there you go, we're just gonna pop it into our preheated oven for 20 minutes. They look beautiful, nicely golden brown. Let me plate them right now. Now I just wanna make a quick note about this parchment paper that I'm using. It's literally the best that I've used so far in my life. You don't even have to grease them, and they hold up really well while baking, so you can reuse them over and over again as long as they're not too dirty. And they're also good for the environment. So this is how it looks like. The brand is called If You Care, and you can find it in most supermarkets, I think, and I really highly recommend it because it is literally the best. Because a lot of parchment paper or grease-proof paper tell you that you don't need to oil it, but a lot of them still stick. So this one has not disappointed me, so I highly recommend it. So I've used pumpkin, feta, and thyme today, but honestly, you can use whatever you like. Sweet potato, lentils, mushrooms, try with different cheeses. Let me know how you get along with it. Here are my spicy pumpkin and feta puffs. May the food be with you. And it's also a good source of riboflavin, otherwise known as vitamin 2. And it... What did I say, vitamin 2?
What's that? I've never heard of it.